All right, there has been an upheaval, absolute upheaval when it comes to our college picks, where I'm going to ask you to do what you cannot do. You won't listen to me, but Garrett's going to put up the graphic and look at the bottom line in gold. Don't look at our picks yet, and I know you already have. Paul Catalina was running away with it along with Emory, and oh my God.
Yeah. 1-4 last week, and the one I'm kicking myself about the most was BYU and TCU, because that would have, I mean, it's only going to make me one game better. Dan Lanning kind of, you know,
he screwed you.
Screwed me. Yeah, I wasn't going to use that word.
He screwed the Ducks, too.
He did that. So those were kind of the flip games for me last week, but Craig's been on a bit of a heater anyway.
Yeah, and it's uncomfortable.
But yeah, now I've got to have a good week here. I've got to have a good week. I'm not worried about what you guys are doing at this point. Right now, I have to worry about getting wins.
You got to just go through the process.
Yeah,
Paul.
I got to get wins.
Garrett, you're kind of slowly, but it looks like you're just slowly getting yourself back into this.
4-1 last week.
That's what I'm saying.
He had some 0-5.
I'm trying to give him
progress.
some love. Emory, of course, cheats. He's the one that puts the graphic up. Craig Smoak has gone from what was, I think, pretty much close to the bottom, surging now with a one-game lead. The magic number, of course, still far away. Craig, what have you done?
I just picked the right teams, I guess, is what I did. Nothing special. I mean, you guys are blowing this, I think, a little bit out of proportion, because I could very well go like 1-4 next week and everybody else goes 4-1.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter, although we have a lot of similar picks. But I think the TCU BYU game, like that one was just obvious to me. I am not a believer in BYU and that 4-1 record that they had at the time. But didn't expect Josh Hoover to play all that well, and just got fortunate that, Washington was able to win a close game.
That could have gone either way.
Yeah, got fortunate Oregon State won.
Yep.
So, I mean, that was just luck. I mean, a lot, like that's what I say with these games is I've seen other picks, and if we added like 5 games that are pretty easy to pick, we could all be like every week, like we're 9-2 or we're 8-4 or whatever. But we picked 5 hard games that are coin flips, and so or close to them. And so last week it wasn't anything rocket science. It was just I picked what I thought was the beher team, and got fortunate that the ball bounced that way.
All right, so Craig's a game up on Emory and a game up on me. So I have slowly, like a silent assassin, just kind of hung around here, and Paul needs a bounce-back week, and Garrett also. I cannot take the lead this week because Craig and I, right down the pipeline, have the same pick. So he's at least a game up on me. Now, here we go. Paul Catalina has been playing this little poor, pitiful Seminoles all week long about Duke and Mike Elko. Yes, they're really good, but all of us don't agree that it's going to be a game that Duke can win.
Yeah, I think the number is too big. 13.5 seems a little bit big against this good Duke defense. The only way I would see that happens is if Duke makes a mistake late. So I think it's going to be a fairly close game and hard fought. But I think FSU has too much. Riley Leonard, even if he does play, is he 100% completely healthy? Because their offense really goes when he runs the ball. So I think FSU holds on here. The one that scares me the most is actually Miami in about 3 weeks for FSU, because Miami might be kind of up against the wall and would love nothing more than to ruin FSU season at that point.
What Duke has done up to this point has been great, but I just think that Florida State has a bit too much firepower for them. Hey, even if you limit Keon Coleman, there's plenty of other guys that can hurt you. So, yeah, I mean, Duke's been fun, but no Riley Leonard as well. That's just, to me, is a little bit too much to overcome for the Blue Devils. So, yeah, give me Florida State.
Yeah, I'd take FSU. I told Paul, and I said this, and don't you ever forget, I said even back in like July or early August that they were going to play for the national championship.
Yeah,
I did.
I hope you're right.
I do too, for your sake, because you're friend.
Yeah.
All right, now, Alabama just kind of slowly just twisting and churning and kind of grinding through because we're so spoiled by what they do. Tennessee last year got them. Alabama and Tennessee this week.
Yeah, and I want to circle back to something from a little while ago. When we were talking about Alabama, was that Taylor that we were talking about, and how everybody initially said, like, oh, my gosh, Bama's dead? it's just clicks, man. Like that's all that is, and and like that's been the case for like years and years now. Everybody wishing or hoping or predicting the demise of Alabama, and what happens every single time? It's like one of those things where if you just say it for 20 years, then year 20 you're finally right and you can brag about it. But yeah, I mean, Alabama's still Alabama. I think this ought to be a great game. But I do think that their demise was again, a little bit overdone, and they're not what they have been in years past. I'm not pretending that, but they are sitting there at freaking 6-1 and favorites to go to 7-1. But this is going to be a heated rivalry game. I just like Bama a bit more overall as a team. I think that they're finding their way there offensively, and Milroe's playing with some confidence. And on the other side, I just don't quite trust Joe Milton to roll into Tuscaloosa. And I know it's not all on his shoulders, but I don't trust him to go in there and architect this thing to a win. So I'm going with Bama.
Yeah, there's a difference between being done and being vulnerable for the first time
There you
ever.
go. There you go.
They're not done, but they're vulnerable. And what's made it kind of maddening, if you were one of these people, I would assume that you wanted the Alabama dynasty to be over, is that they're vulnerable, and the rest of the SEC, instead of pouncing on them like wild dogs, is also vulnerable.
Right. Yeah.
No one, it's not like the power went out of them and into somebody else. It just went out of them a little bit, but they're still the best coached team, especially on that side of the SEC. Now, where I think will bear interest is over the haul of adding Oklahoma and Texas to this mix and what they're going to do schedule-wise. Can Alabama, cut off the leaks this offseason, or is it going to be more of a struggle? Is this more of what's to come? It's going to be harder for teams to have a chokehold on things like Bama did, but they're at home against Tennessee. This game is probably going to look like a 1997 SEC game more than it would a 2023 SEC game, but I think Bama wins at home. They don't lose at home, and B, they don't lose to people 2 years in a row.
All right, I pick Bama.
Yeah, I think it's like Oklahoma's fan base. If we really wanted to, if we just want to stir the hornet's nest, you can get a huge reaction by just saying whatever. Like
Nick Saban's lost it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the thing with the Saban stuff too. Although I think Alabama probably plays off of it pretty well because they've been hearing it for so long. But there's no doubt they're vulnerable. Like you said, the whole SEC is down in comparison. It's not like there's the Burrow-led Tigers or someone like that's waiting in the weeds for them. They're still at the top, except for obviously Georgia on the other side of that coin.
And who knows? Maybe somebody can still kind of give them a hickey in the SEC West, and it could be Tennessee. But all of us except for Emory, who must have insider trading. Now, across the board, and I thought this one might be a little bit of a mixture. Across the board, TCU, after what they did with Josh Hoover, the quarterback. Kansas State, though, at home after what they did in Lubbock. And it seems as if maybe they got some of their mojo back. This should be fun. I think the winner of this game remains alive. The loser's done.
Yeah, I do think that, TCU will play a lot better. I think that they are maybe going to come together a little bit. Josh Hoover, after talking to Jared Wiley, it seems like rallying around having to play the backup quarterback has helped them get a little bit of, juice that they didn't have in previous weeks. But this is Kansas State at home. Kansas State's a very physical team. And the last time they played a team that played that physical was Iowa State, and they lost. So leaning Kansas State here, but I do expect this to be a pretty good one.
Yeah, I think it'll be a really good game. I don't blame anybody if they pick TCU here because for all we know, Josh Hoover might have been the secret ingredient. But, I mean, being in Manhattan with the Avery Johnson stuff last week of TCU now having to prepare for the possibility of both, the likelihood of both guys. And then, I mean, what are the odds that both guys aren't playing very well? And I don't think TCU's defense is so dominant. Although they looked good last week. I mean, they destroyed BYU, but BYU's got one of the worst offenses in college in the Big 12, certainly. And defensively as well, quite frankly, statistically. But that was a good win for TCU. Is it a launching pad? I'm not quite ready to go there just yet. But if they beat K-State, then absolutely we can start talking about how they are suddenly headed in a much different direction than they were at the beginning of the year. But I'm not ready to believe that'll be the case, so I'm going K-State here.
All right, I have the Wildcats. Chris Kleiman. Garrett, you want to you're being shy today. Jump in.
Oh, I'm just like Josh Hoover, I don't think going into a hostile environment as a freshman, I don't know if he's ready for that. If you look at TCU defensively, they've taken a significant step back from last year. How they managed to corral Avery is going to be difficult for them. And I like K-State at home. I like their culture, everything about them, and I think they're going to right the ship.
All right, so all that one, we're all in agreement there like we are with Florida State. That's boring, but again, that might say quite a bit. USC coming off getting, did I say bludgeoned earlier this week by Notre Dame? I think that's a fair term. USC at home against Utah, which is capable of doing that with kind of the way they play, yet, without Rising, they're okay, and they're better than okay, but your thoughts here?
I'm betting on Cam this week to not have a bad game again. That's what I'm betting on.
Caleb?
Caleb. Yeah, Cam. Caleb.
Because if it's Cam Newton, I'm going to pick whoever he's playing for.
Yeah, no, I'm betting on I'm thinking about Cam Rising, actually. I'm betting on Caleb not to have a bad game a second week in a row. Look, he had one bad game. He's out of the Heisman race as it stands right now, but this is the guy who is the reigning Heisman Trophy winner for a reason. Utah's defense is spectacular in what they've done, rotating between two guys who are blah at quarterback is even more impressive and speaks to what Kyle Whittingham and Andy Legwood have going there. But I'm just going to go Trojans at home and a game that they're probably going to struggle a little bit because of Utah's defense, but I don't think Caleb's going to have two bad games in a row. And not having Cam Rising in this game is great for the Trojans because he owned them last year.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about what has been a turnaround, honestly, because you just reminded me when you said, we're all picking K-State, that's boring. I'm not looking at everybody else's picks because earlier on I'm like, everybody's picking them. I need to do that. And the last couple weeks, I just don't even look at them whatsoever, and I just pick my
Paul's
own.
After last
because
night,
I used to worry about, everybody's got the same picks, and there's no way, and that's just a stupid way to do it. So that's what I've stopped doing.
If you'll notice, we do reply all, but I just send mine to Levi separately.
Yeah. But that is, part of it, I guess. But yeah, with USC, I trust Caleb Williams is going to have a big bounce back game after what we saw last week, and I feel much better about USC being able to find ways to score points than Utah being able to find ways to score points. Even though USC's defense is not that great, Utah's offense obviously is not nearly what it should be. With the quarterback situation, with Brant Keithy also, not a part of the equation. So they're not what they expected to be, and that's a little bit too much for me to think that they're going to roll into L.A. and grab a win from a USC team that's coming off of a loss, and I bet pretty pissed off with what happened last week. So I'm thinking this is a Caleb game, and that'll outweigh whatever Utah is able to do defensively.
Are they more pissed off than Steve Sarkisian and UT?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would hope so.
All right. Penn State, Ohio State, and this makes sense. By the way, Garrett has Utah. You want to explain that?
I just think Utah's the more physical team.
Okay.
USC, too finesse. They can't really handle that. My only concern is the lack of offensive production from Utah. I think that's probably going to bite me in the end with you. And, mention come off that loss to Notre Dame. But just given the success the Utes have had over USC and their physical brand of football going into L.A., to me, that's a cause for an upset.
All right, and then we go to the mother of all the games, it appears, with Penn State in a mission collision course with Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State eventually, but this one's first. Penn State on the road in the Horseshoe against the Buckeyes.
This is a great chance for James Franklin to get that signature, dub, in which he's going to have two of them this year, at least, if they want to be in the college football playoff discussion. I think this game is going to be so tooth and nail and tough. The only thing I'm saying is that I just think that James Franklin is going to have them ready to get that signature dub. He's won there before. Granted, that was not a great Ohio State team that he beat, so at least he's gotten that monkey off his back when it comes to winning in Columbus. I'm picking Penn State. Just a gut feeling. This is such a toss-up game.
Yeah, there was again, looking at last week, is just you didn't really make a wrong pick by picking Oregon. You were on the wrong side of the coin. I feel like this is one of those games right here, right? If you pick Penn State, you got a totally legitimate reason to feel that way. If you pick Ohio State, you got a totally legitimate reason to feel that way. Part of playing in Columbus was a factor in my decision here. But, yeah, it's a coin flip, and I just trust the home team and the team that's done it more often than not to get the job done once again in what should be a tight and thrilling contest. But I definitely gave a lot of thought to Drew Aller and the Nittany Lions. I just, again, I flipped that coin, it landed on the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I just at home, and I had to stop myself before and go, okay, they don't have Garrett Wilson. I know that they don't have Njigba Smith, Smith and Njigba. They don't have those type of players. but they still have weapons. And the young quarterback, I'm going to take Ohio State.
Marvin Harrison Jr.
Marvin
and
Harrison.
Mecca Ekubo.
I'm telling you, they used to have 4 of him, it seemed like to me. The way that Wilson and Njigba Smith and all the guys, Smith and Jigba and all those guys, it seemed like they do have, Igbuke, the other receiver who's pretty good. It just doesn't seem like they have exploded.
They don't have an NFL quarterback.
Well,
that's going in the top 5, and that's part of the issue.
Affects them,
It's not the receivers; it's the quarterback. They don't have C.J. Stroud back there, or Justin Fields, or they've got Kyle McCord,
which has affected the production. Although
Right.
Harrison's had a pretty big year, despite it just at 4 of his 6 games he's over 100 yards receiving. Okay. Garrett, you took the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I feel like this is the best team James Franklin has had, and if he's going to do it, he's going to make the next jump. It's got to be this year. I think going on the road with that defense they have against a freshman quarterback can help. I know it's difficult anytime you go into the horseshoe, but I think they're built for their style of play is built for this. And if you can't do it this year, you're never going to do it if you're James Franklin.
All right, there we go. So right now, Craig Smoak with a 1-game lead. Emory. And I am right there, a game back. Paul has gone into that Rangers late season funk, but maybe they can turn it around just in time for the postseason.
Look at a rally.
Garrett is now just 2 back of Paul. Never thought I would say that.
Nope.
Coming.
Neither did I.
He's like, Dion, you're coming. All right, thank you guys for the picks.
Yeah, should be another fun weekend of games, and I just wanted to pass along that Jim